Welcome back to Tao of Twang. I'm Dave. We got a groovy D, laid back kind of jam going here today. And I kind of set this up to be able to work on and talk about a little bit of a different approach using a pretty simple progression. It's D major and G major are the chords. So we're in D. But something that uses some, on this channel, since we're talking about improvisation a lot, we tend to, kind of take chords and plug in a scale and play a lot of single note stuff, and that suits our purpose well. But you also, want to, play more than one note at a time, and pieces of chords that are also riffs, and kind of mix that in, and that's kind of a cool style. And some of the real famous examples of that would be like Little Wing, and a lot of Chili Pepper stuff, John Mayer, rhythm playing that seems to guitar playing that kind of covers the whole landscape, right? It's not just a solo and it's not just chords. This is kind of a path that you can take through a tune or a jam that really kind of brings all that along with it. So I'm kind of, taking the easy way out. I'm using a backing track and playing like kind of a second guitar part, or more of the soloing, role. But this would also be really useful for just kind of hanging out and playing when you don't have a backing track, or when you're not at band practice or something, right? And you're just kind of playing the chord. Okay, that sort of feel, right? Not really sure what to call this. That's why I named those famous examples, right? So let's jump in here. As far as the theory of what we do and what key we're in here today, we're in D. And it's pretty straightforward, right? We're using the notes mainly that are in the D major scale. Okay. And most of the time, even when we're on the G, we're using those same notes, right? So that's called Lydian. G is the fourth note of D. Do, re, mi, fa. That's the fourth. So if we start on that note but use the same sequence of notes that are in D major, you get that Lydian sound. If you're not used to that, and don't worry about it. Not something you really have to think about too much for this jam. But I just, people ask questions, and they're great questions, and it's a good opportunity each time to kind of include a little piece about, the key that we're in and stuff. But this is what this is really all about, is taking chord shapes. Okay, that's a D. Let's start with the D first. And just playing those three. We've done that in a lot of other lessons on this channel, right? Just taking that bar chord and isolating these three. Okay, so that's kind of our home base for a lot of this stuff that we're going to be doing in this lesson. Now, another, position that we're probably familiar with is that kind of shape or bar chord, right? Now, one way you can think about this style, this approach to playing, is that just taking, adjacent strings from these larger chord shapes. some of this stuff was right there all along. We just didn't break it down, right? Let me just show you the first move that I'm using a lot in this in that intro. Is these two. We isolate just those top two strings from that D bar chord, and just up two and back two. Okay, do that however you want in terms of, you know, sliding it. You could hammer it. Okay, and you know, play around with different. You could separate some of the notes. Right, or just right up and right back. Okay. So let's try that with our track. Now notice I'm doing it over the D and the G. Okay, sounds a little, you know, more like it's hanging above the G more, and in the D it sounds real solid, you know. Let me do it one more time. I'll show you that. That is D. Right? So that's that kind of, when we say modal sound, it's like that's where, yeah, something feels like it's kind of suspended over the chord or the progression, right? It goes with it. It's got a nice harmony, but it's not the root sound of it, of the chord, right? So all the stuff I'm about to show you is going to work anywhere in that progression. But you also want to be aware of which chord you're on. Like when it switches to the G, you know, you could go to more of a G triad. Okay, so same way we did with the D, we could go, right? So there's one real quick thing we could do is, that's the G, is, okay, now it's gonna, you know, you're gonna get tired of that pretty quick. But that's a good example, right? Of you want to practice mobility. Like, oh, if it works on D, let me see if it works on G, right? The good news is that they're kind of interchangeable, and you can kind of do them both over each one of the chords, which is cool. So let's look at our. We had this D and this. And we kind of worked off of those, right? We isolated that, then we isolated that from that shape of D. So let's look at G. Okay, where's another G? Well, up here. Okay. All right. Now, there's one more down here in the middle that's not as obvious sometimes, but it's... This one's an important one for what we're doing today because it's the next door neighbor of that. You know, you don't even have to move your hand. So let's kind of work that in there a little bit. Okay, don't worry, I'm going to show you that last little thing here in a minute. But let's go back up to here. Now, that was these two strings. Isolate the notes in that D form on these two, and you get, that's a nice voicing. That's the third and the fifth of D. Here's a really cool thing you can do that's pretty not too difficult, sounds really good, is take these two fingers and use these two instead. Okay, so you got, then this one back here and hammer that from 2 frets behind it. Okay. Now, we got 3 things going here so far. All right. Well, two licks, and then, you know, just that D. And we're going to build another little lick around that in a second. Let's just go with those moves for a second. That's the G. I played a funky note there, didn't I? Let me do it again. There. Now I threw a couple of extra little things in there. Don't worry about that so much. Make sure you get this. That move. Okay. Now, in those examples, I was just kind of holding on that for the G. And that's a nice little routine. Do more of your stuff on the D, you know, at first, then kind of hold on the G. Kind of gives you like a nice form to your practicing. So, let's go back to this D for a second. We go this form, no matter which one of these 2 fingers, to that, with this in the middle. You can hammer it or slide it. Okay, so it sounds like... That takes some practice. It looks simpler than it is, you know. You can let go of it down here, or you can kind of let it stay down. That's kind of trickier to get the sound to come out that way. You'll get it. So that's the 3rd of D. Do, re, still playing a D chord, but we got the 3rd on the bottom instead of the D root on the bottom. It's different sound. Okay, so now check this out. Now we're getting somewhere with this, right? Don't try to string all this stuff together as fast as you can. I'm just showing you, you can isolate all this stuff and practice them separately, right? So, here's some really good news. And if you take away anything from this lesson, this is it. This is the game changer. If you're haven't already discovered this. When you're up here, not only does that 2 fret span work on that 5th string, it works on, it's like that major pentatonic scale. You just almost can't hit a bad note in there. Doesn't matter if you got these held down. If you don't, you can... Probably making that look a little easier than it is. So like I said, if this is where you park this video and you just say, hey, I'm just going to work out on that. Now, if we tabbed that out, do you know what that would look like? It'd be okay. You know, a lot of you are really used to tab, but it would be there'd be so much material. It would look like so much, right? Oh, is it these two strings, these two? Am I holding three? Am I holding two? Do I hammer here? And before you know it, you're just kind of like, lost in that again. And that, am I doing it right? Play something that feels good, that sounds good right there. I know that sounds pie in the sky sometimes, but you can do that. These are the mechanics of it. You might be using this finger instead of this one. Okay. This is a lot, but here's your routine. I'll wait for it to come back to the D. It's not to play all that stuff in that order exactly like that, but take those three things and just roam around, right? Sometimes I'm coming down, and sometimes there is so much just with that. I just love that little piece right there, because doesn't that sound familiar? How many cool songs and riffs you've heard that have that? So that's a good practice routine, okay? And it's gonna, you can drift around in that progression, and it's not going to let you down. It's going to circle back around to where you can get back to making sense of it, right? Pretty quickly. And I think that's enough material for this lesson. I just can't emphasize that enough, to just really think about these as like little compartments of these other chords that you probably are already familiar with, okay? Be looking out midweek around Wednesday, because the Just Show Me the Licks companion lesson for this session is going to be really cool, because I'm going to really put some lines together and some phrases, and you get these mechanics down in the next few days, or whenever you come back to see that next video, you'll really be able to incorporate it, One more thing I'll just say about this is this is a great one to practice without accompaniment, right? You could do that D lick for, 12 measures if you want. Right? And when you go to that G, it's still going to sound perfect, right? Now, that's really cool. So this isn't something where you have to I got to start over and, try to get this lead all the way through. This is a real relaxed kind of approach to grooving with your guitar. All right. Appreciate you as always. Really enjoy hearing from so many of you throughout the week. And just look forward to spending more time with you sometime soon. Okay. Thank you.